Ted Cruz got in trouble recently. There was a colossal winter storm that hit Texas, the worst in a very long time. They're not used to getting weather like this almost ever. So the state ground to a halt. You have so many people who don't have clean drinking water. You have so many people who lost power. You have pipes bursting everywhere. And really, the core problem was not what they were trying to blame. The Republicans were trying to blame windmills and the Green New Deal. Ridiculous. The real problem was that there were no regulations to winterize the power grid. If they had regulations to winterize the power grid, this wouldn't have happened. Because, there's plenty of places that are way colder than Texas, and they don't have giant energy issues when it snows. Why? Because they're prepared for such things. So this was a huge problem. In the middle of this crisis, Ted Cruz was caught in an airport going to Cancun with his family. Naturally, people really flipped out over it, and they were like, how fucking dare you? You're one of the senators from Texas. You think there's not work for you to do around this crisis here and now? And so he went to Cancun. Then he said, on the flight, I had second thoughts about all this, and I turned around and came back. No big deal, bro. The reality is he saw the insane amount of criticism, and he was like, damn, I fucked up. And so he's like, me, bro? I was just dropping him off. No big deal. I was going to come back anyway. I don't even know what you're talking about. Nonsense. He, of course, was going to stay down there. Then he heard the criticism and reversed it. So he goes on Hannity to defend himself, and here's the joyous clip we get.
And after a couple of days, after the girls being really cold, it being in the teens and the 20s outside, our girls said, look, school's been canceled for the week. Can we take a trip and go somewhere warm? And Heidi and I, as parents, we said, okay, sure. And so last night I flew down with them to the beach, and then I flew back this afternoon. I had initially planned to stay through the weekend and to work remotely there, but as I was heading down there, I started to have second thoughts almost immediately, because the crisis here in Texas, you need to be here on the ground, and as much as you can do by phone and Zoom, it's not the same as being here. And so I returned this afternoon, and I'm here working to make sure to do everything we can to get the power turned on, but also fundamentally to ask the questions, why did this happen? Why was the Texas grid, which is regulated at the state level, it's operated at the state level, it's not a federal function, it's a state function, but why was the grid not sufficiently prepared so that 4 million Texans lost heat and power? We need to answer that, and we need to make sure it never happens again in the state of Texas.
To what extent? Now, Texas is very unique in that there's no federal control authority over their energy grid. It's separate and apart, which for a lot of different reasons is very good for Texas. As you do not have to abide by the burdensome regulations of the federal government. Very smart on Texas's part, and I think that's brilliant. Well, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I thought we learned during COVID that teleschool, telemedicine, teleworking, Zoom calls, all this other stuff changed the way we do everything. Now, I'm not assuming that the people of Texas, with all the natural resources of Texas, why is Texas relying on wind turbines, which, by the way, it's use it or lose it. You can't store that energy.
This clip is incredible, and it's incredible because even after we know for sure what the facts are and what the answers are, Sean Hannity is doing rank propaganda. Sean Hannity is more extreme than Ted Cruz on this, and Sean Hannity is less apologetic than Ted Cruz on this. So there's a few parts of this I love. When Cruz brings up, we got to figure out, why did this happen? Why was the grid not sufficiently prepared? He's bringing it up as if it requires some sort of an investigation or a report, or like the answers are up in the air. No, we have the answers. It's really not that difficult to piece it together. Then Hannity jumps in and says, Texas, they have no federal control over the energy grid, and honestly, that's been really good for Texas. They don't have to abide by the burdensome regulations, and so that's been wonderful for them. That's exactly wrong. He got it exactly backwards. He's praising the exact thing that was the problem in this situation. Do you understand that? He's flipping the truth directly on its head. If there was what he calls burdensome regulations, which other people would call common sense regulations, you would have winterized the energy grid and you would have been fine. You would have been able to not have pipes bursting all over the place and to have power for everybody in the midst of a winter storm. I mean, I'm floored. And here's the question for you guys. Is Sean Hannity just the biggest liar on the planet, or is he the biggest idiot on the planet? What is it? Does he know as he's saying this, like, wow, I'm flipping the truth on its head. Look at me. Or is he actually dumb enough where he really believes all of the insane propaganda that came out instantly when this winter storm hit, where everybody tried to blame the Green New Deal and blame windmills? Just so you understand, about 20% of Texas's power comes from windmills. The windmills overperformed compared to fossil fuels, compared to natural gas, and compared to coal. It was nuclear, I think, performed the best. Then it was windmills. And then after that, you had coal and natural gas did the worst because the infrastructure wasn't winterized. So things froze. You know, everything struggled, but nuclear did the best, and then windmills did the second best. But they're bringing it up like, you know, like they know that this is the problem. And even Hannity trying to cover Cruz's ass when Cruz is trying to be a little more diplomatic about it. Hannity's like, I thought we learned with COVID that we could do everything through Zoom, bro. I don't even know why people are making a big deal out of this. So what? You went on vacation in the middle of an absolute crisis in Texas where you should have been around to do stuff in order to make life easier for people on the ground. I mean, yeah, Zoom calls work, bro. Stop and think about this, guys. If this was a Democrat with the exact same set of facts, how would Hannity respond? There's not even a question there. And that's all the proof that you need that this guy is a rank partisan hack. That's what he is. He sees everything in the world through dumb partisan blinders. Everything. And, you know, he's fundamentally unserious, and nobody should take him seriously. Because, again, if this was a Democrat with the exact same set of facts, he would be losing his mind for over a week. Losing his mind. So he doesn't apply the same standard across the board. He doesn't. He likes Republicans and he hates Democrats. So he's in damage control mode for Cruz even more than Cruz is in damage control mode for Cruz. It's just so pathetic to see. But listen, man, again, the most important point is we don't need an investigation. We don't need a report. This isn't some sort of mystery that how are we going to get to the bottom of this? No. The answer is if Texas had regulations to winterize the infrastructure, this wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have happened. You have windmills in Antarctica, and they function. Clearly, the cold is not an impediment for that kind of power source. So everything that they're doing where they're trying to deflect and blame the Green New Deal, which isn't implemented, or blame left-wing policies, it's bullshit, is what it is. When the real culprit is the lack of regulation. And so you don't need some sort of an investigation or a report. What you need is to implement some basic regulations to make sure that this never happens again. That's it. But they're never going to be honest, because if they're being honest about what happened here, it flies directly in the face of their ideology, to the extent they have one. I mean, again, Hannity's such a partisan hack. I don't even know if you could say he has a coherent ideology. He's just a partisan hack. But yes, if you believe them, what they say is, oh, we believe in small government, we believe in free market solutions. I mean, it was an amazing contrast. Ken Klippenstein tweeted this out. One thing talking about terrible price gouging going on now in Texas, and we have to stop it. It's not okay. And he put that right next, this is Ted Cruz saying this, he put that right next to a Ted Cruz tweet that was like, the free market is working phenomenally well for our energy needs in Texas, just so everybody understands. We got to get the government out of this stuff. Okay, directly contradictory. Because it's that so-called free marketplace which is now leading to the colossal price gouging. So it's tough to watch when you know that what's happening has clear answers and solutions, but they're avoiding it at all costs because they're partisan hacks and they're ideologically far right. And they can't find it in themselves to admit, yeah, we needed basic regulations. If Texas already had those regulations, they would have been fine. And apparently there was an opportunity in 2011 to do exactly this, and they refused. And now a lot of good people are hurting. I'm not one of those people who likes to make a shitty point of like, this is what you get, y'all, for voting Republican. What'd you expect? No. Because what this is a moment where everybody learns. Everybody can learn, and we can adjust moving forward. And I don't care who you voted for, what your ideology is, or whatever. I'm interested in solutions. I'm interested in policy substance. And what we know for sure here is if you winterize the grid and have new regulations, you would have been fine. And so I hope that now this is what happens going forward. But you're never going to get the straight dope from Republican hacks. And Ted Cruz is here covering his own ass because he looked silly doing what he did, and he looked callous doing what he did. But Hannity's even worse. And doesn't that say something about that right-wing media ecosystem and politician ecosystem? That, I mean, there's not an ounce of honesty in this discussion.